Pause here. I'm just trying to see. Is- I'm trying to connect the camera. All right, thank you. Man, these people do anything to keep the show from going. I'm telling you, it's outrageous. But welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid. First of all, I want to thank all of you who subscribed to us, who hit the like button, who enjoyed, and those who even didn't enjoy the show that we did with Scott Ritter yesterday. You can check it out on the Red Pill Diaries channel on YouTube. And it's all one word. The Red Pill Diaries is all one word. We like to thank you. We finally overcame that hurdle of 1,000 because it seems like every time we got 10, YouTube was taking 5, 8, and 9, you know. So I want to thank you all for pushing it with your subscriptions to the channel. It means the world, it means so much to us. And it looks like we'll be entering close to 2,000 sometimes soon. So thank you so much. But let's go into the show today. The show is titled Follow the Money. Biden, Ukraine. Now, the reason I said that, the reason I is because most people don't understand connections that President Biden and his clan have. Why it is so vital for them to and put this war, but frame it as a war of aggression from Russia and blame everything on Vladimir Putin. Now, I want to go to an article that was published on RT. And this article is titled Zelensky Takes Credit for Derailing Minsk Agreements. Now, remember that his predecessor, Poroshenko, who became president through an illegal coup in Ukraine, remember that he also bragged about using the Minsk Accords and using the agreements between Russia and the so-called European or Western clique. They bragged on using those as a delaying tactic to rearm, retrain, and reinforce Ukrainian and NATO embedded forces in the Donbass and all across Ukraine, so that America could wage a war to bleed Russia, the Russian Empire, to death. And I think they wanted a death by 1,000 cuts. Now, I see my co-host in the booth, and I'm going to bring him in right now. But I'm going to read this article. So my co-host will say hello, and we'll go into it. How's it going today, Rashid?
It's going pretty good today. I'm still kicking, brother. Still kicking.
I was talking about the name of the show today is called "Follow the Money: Biden, Ukraine, and the War on Russia." And so I want to go into this article that is published on RT, and it's called "Zelensky Takes Credit for Derailing Minsk Agreements." And in it, the article reads like this. Let's go here. The article reads like this. The Ukrainian president claimed he personally refused to implement the deal for peace in the Donbass. Now, stop right there. If he claims that he personally was responsible for not implementing the deal that was to bring peace to Ukraine, he is a violator of not only the deal, but remember, he's a violator of international law because that deal was brought before the UN Security Council and voted on and passed as a law globally. So he is not only admitting his involvement in the transgressions of genocide, ethnic cleansing, and waging war and all of the repercussions that it has brought on Ukraine, but he's also openly stating that he is a flaunter, just like his puppeteers of international law. Let's go a little further. It says right here, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky personally refused to implement the 2015 agreement, Minsk agreement, of the country, which was France, Italy, even an interview with Der Spiegel, published on Thursday as he continues his tour across Europe. Zelensky said he viewed the agreements as a concession on Ukraine's part and never once actually sought to implement them. Instead, they were merely used to exchange prisoners with the two breakaway Donbass republics. It goes on and says, the president claimed he openly told the then German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Russian President Vladimir Putin back in 2019, with all of them acting surprised. Now, he's a lie on that, but he didn't openly tell Vladimir Putin that, but he wants to save face. But Rashid, what do you think about this, especially when, if he had adhered to the agreed upon framework of things, Ukraine would not be in the situation it's in, and 30% of the territory would not be under Russian control, with another portion that is about to fall up under Russian control. What do you say about that?
I thought it was Poroshenko that didn't agree with that, and wasn't Zelensky.
Yeah, I had Poroshenko. I got the people was his president, his predecessor Poroshenko, who openly admitted to that, and he's following in suit of Poroshenko. But remember, he got elected on a pro-Russian, pro-Ukraine platform, ran for president. What are you thinking about these revelations and these open confessions by the so-called democratically elected president of Ukraine, especially in the midst of this war that is wreaking havoc across Ukraine and is bringing Europe to an industrial downfall?
Well, it shows you that the president is not the president of that country, Ukraine. He's the president of somebody. Somebody appointed him there, when they took over Panama, right, and got rid of what's the guy name?
Noriega.
Panama, Noriega.
Yeah,
they appointed somebody in a military naval American a warship, and the guy said, "Well, who is it? Who cares? He's gonna do what we tell him to do." You put these so-called presidents in there who have no allegiance to these countries at all. Only thing he is a puppet. You know, they tell him to raise his right hand, and he raises it. Left hand, stand, sit. He do whatever they tell him to do.
right.
When you got a puppet on the hand, you can tell him to do anything you want to do. Would it the president of the prime minister of Israel said he had a deal made between Russia and Ukraine, and America and England nixed it. So it shows you he's not for the people of Ukraine. He got to do what his paymaster said. As I was always taught, the guy that's paying you owns you. You got to do what he tells you to do.
Mm-hmm.
He cared
and
nothing
that
about what they.
And that was one. That was one point that I made in one of our previous shows recently about the guys at the Duran and how they do a wonderful job. But I believe Alexander he made a mistake when he said that America is demanding that Ukrainian troops pull out, but Zelensky does not want to pull Ukrainian troops out. And we know that if America is footing the bill, and if America install you, you are beholden to America. You don't get a say. You don't get a say in what America tell you to do this. And if you don't do it, they'll assassinate you, overthrow you, or put you in jail, or kidnap you and torture you.
So your second in charge will do what we say.
That's right. That's right. If you won't be compliant to the empire, they will find you with a bullet hole in your head, and the empire will take your second media behind him, the media spin behind him, and make him this valuable hero to the whole West. So again, the show was titled Biden, Ukraine, and the War on Russia. Why did I say that? Let's go into a clip real quick. I want us to back some a little bit. Because some of us, we forget, we have those short memories about how Zelensky came to power. We forget about who brought him to power, and we forget about their aims when they put him in power. So we're going to go back a minute, and we want to refresh your memory for about a minute or two. So I want you to pay close attention to this because we're going to build up to something. So pay close attention.
Douglas Macgregor, who joins us now. Sir, what's the strategy?
What you're seeing is that the Russians have now driven what is left of the Ukrainian forces, who are taking refuge in population centers, cities, because they have no mobility, no air defense, no air cover, no logistical infrastructure. They are now mingling with the population, much as we've seen in the Middle East. Whenever we drove the Islamists out of business, they ran into cities, used people as shields, the civilian population, and tried to avoid being annihilated. Russian forces, I think, frankly, were too gentle. They've now corrected that. So I would say another 10 days, this should be completely over. But the question is, what is it that Zelensky is going to do? The Russians have made it very clear what they want is a neutral Ukraine. This could have ended days ago if he accepted that. And then they can adjust the borders. But the eastern part of Ukraine is firmly in Russian hands. But again, the Russians are not seizing territory. They're destroying Ukrainian forces. That's their focus.
Colonel, it sounds like you don't approve of Zelensky's stand.
Oh, I think Zelensky is a puppet. And he is putting huge numbers of his own population at unnecessary risk. And quite frankly, most of what comes out of Ukraine is debunked as lies within 24 to 48 hours. The notions of taking and retaking airfields, all of this is nonsense. It hasn't happened.
He's not a hero when he's standing up for himself and his own people? You don't think he's a hero?
No, I do not. I don't see anything heroic about the man. And I think the most heroic thing that he can do right now is to come to terms with reality. Neutralize Ukraine. This is not a bad thing. A neutral Ukraine would be good for us as well as for Russia. It would create the buffer that, frankly, both sides want. But he's, I think, being told to hang on and try to drag this out, which is tragic for the people that have to live through this.
Got your message. Has it frozen? No, it hadn't frozen. On my end, I was seeing everything moving, but probably on your end, it was frozen. But it is being disrupted a little bit. And let me just to watching. If you see a little graininess to the camera, that was done purposely because my son figured out that if we downgrade the stats of the camera a little bit, they won't interfere as much as they normally do. And so that is why it's a little grainy in the camera, okay? But again, this was an interview given to Fox News last year. And we know that things have gotten dramatically worse for the Kiev regime. We know that things are getting dramatically worse economically, politically, and socially across and in America. Go ahead, say what you have to say. Go ahead.
Haven't they dropped Douglas Macgregor? I ain't seen him on Fox News in a year or so. He'd be putting out too much truth. And so, anybody that tell the truth, you find out your calls that it won't be responded to by the big media. They just Judge Napolitano, they kicked him off, and he can go on his show, but he can't go. If you sit up there saying that the Ukraine is losing, next thing you know, you get thrown off television.
Well, I also want to help. I want to refresh people's memories because I'm doing this for a specific purpose. We're going to try to show them. We're going to take them back down the memory hole so that they don't forget these things when they're watching what is actually transpiring in real time. So I want to understand going on in the connection with Job's family, his son Hunter, set up on one of the boards of one of the corporations that was pillaging Ukraine prior to the war in Ukraine, and they were paying kicks to Joe Biden. And so they are, and
Joe
as
Biden
vice president, he even threatened the Ukrainian government that if they did not fire the prosecutor that was looking into misdoings by Joe Biden, his son, and his clique, that America would withhold the $2 billion, or I think it was $2 billion, that was needed to offset a impending Ukrainian economic default. So,
and then they
go ahead, Rashid.
And then they go on television and holler about Donald Trump holding back the money for Ukraine. You know, he did the same thing.
Yeah. And he bragged about it.
As we try to tip. Yeah, as we're telling you, the Democrats and the Republicans are both sides of the same coin. Tails is a quarter and heads is a quarter. So you get deceived into this thing that they're going, I'm different. I'm different than that other guy. No, he's the same guy, just the other side of the coin.
I want the people to understand, when that FTX, the FTX, and who disappeared with after being after becoming wanted with the Democratic Party and some of the Republican Party. He was put up under, I think, a $10 million bond, and he never paid anything. He just signed his name and walked out of jail. Why is that? You have to have powerful friends and high places to be allowed to do that after causing tens of billions of dollars to be wiped out of wealth from other people, and then to have hidden millions and even billions of dollars for yourself. The corruption is enormous, and it's astonishing when you look at this stuff. The mainstream media won't talk about it, but all you hear is blame Putin. Putin, my cat was run over by a car. Putin is the culprit. I don't have enough food, and Putin is the well, I just had a fight with my spouse. Putin caused that fight. Everything is Putin. And what they try to do is make it look as though Putin is an island unto himself, when Putin is a very popular president who was duly elected by the majority. What was it, 70 or 80%? 70 or 80%?
More than any Western leader.
He in at what, 83%? And his rival is like 80%, 30%.
Yeah, Biden became president in what?
Affairs of the nation.
10%?
You represent. Yeah. This man he's representing the population, and he is expressing the will of the people, unlike over here. That when you say something wrong, you get a strike on YouTube, or you get banned, or you get threatened for your channel to be erased. Go ahead, Rashid.
Matter of fact, Putin, what? Like you said, 80%. Biden, what? 50% of the people, less than 50% of the people he got elected.
But
over there, matter of fact, in Putin, over there with Putin, the people are more hawkish than Putin is. They want them to go in, and the people want them to go in and smash Ukraine
and NATO.
Most of the top brass. Yeah, they want them to go in there and smash. And Putin is like riding a bull. If he gotta pull that bull back from going full sport. And if they keep hollering about Putin, if they get rid of Putin, they probably get somebody worse.
Yeah. And also think about that, you said, Putin, you have the people of Russia not only wanted to go in there and get this thing out the way with a heavy hand, they want to also strike NATO territory for them bringing in weapons to kill. That's legitimate under international law to destroy the place of origin where the weapons are coming from. That is under international law. Russia is within their international rights as a sovereign nation to do that.
If it was on the other shoe, you can bet the empire would be striking.
Yeah. Look at what she's doing, and she's violating territory of everybody. And she's out of international law, and she still bombs the hell out of people. So I want to refresh.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute, brother. Wait. You failed to realize the empire is exceptional. You shouldn't be saying that she's flaunting international law. I can do that because I'm exceptional. I'm special.
Hey, yeah.
I can do what I want to do
there is
because
none other.
I'm me. It's my manifest destiny to rule.
Yeah,
that's right.
So listen, we're gonna play something, and I'm playing these things strategically because shortly, we're gonna bring you up to speed on things, the corruption, the different ties, all of that. We're gonna bring up to speed. With question, Russia bombed the pipeline. Now Russia was money off that. Russia was someone who was getting revenue line were the Danish and the U.S. So if a crime is committed, they look for motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most. That doesn't stop with America. That doesn't stop with NATO. You have to apply those same laws when dealing with them. So I want you to listen to something real quick. It's about 3 minutes. Check this out.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
As you know, energy is the cash cow that enables these kinds of military deployments. So Putin needs the energy to flow as much as the consumers need it. But more broadly, we have been counseling Europe for almost a decade now to reduce its dependence on Russian energy.
Today, we are also dealing with an act of sabotage. We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it is an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of the situation we are dealing with in Ukraine.
The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war.
As you all know, these pipelines weren't pumping gas into Europe at this time. NS2 was never operational, as you guys know. NS1 has not been operational for weeks because Putin has weaponized energy, and we have said this many times before. This just drives home the importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition.
He talked about inflation between the East and so many words. Well, let's go to the definition first to understand what he means by escalation. And when we understand what escalation means in depth, when we go into it and understand what it means, it gives a whole new meaning to the moves that are being made by the Western world against Russia and vice versa, okay? So according to the dictionary, Google's dictionary, the word escalation is a noun. It means a rapid increase, a rapid rise. Rise, hike, advance, growth, leap, upsurge. Seriousness, an increase in the intensity or seriousness of something. An intensification means an escalation of violence. This is Google. So when they made that statement, look at the situation in Ukraine and how intensified the fighting has become. Look at how America and the Western world has intensified their supplies of weaponry, has intensified propaganda campaign against Russia to make Russia seem to be the aggressor and to make it seem as though this was unprovoked and that the United States and NATO are benevolent in Ukraine, when everyone with kind of sense understands that it was the US and NATO who provoked Russia into this. So I say that to say this, we're going to get to something. On September 27th last year, now we just looked at that pipeline clip, but on September 27th, 2022, an article came out with the headlines, ex-Polish foreign minister thanks US for the destruction of Russian gas pipeline. And it reads like this: Moscow has called the incidents a terrorist attack, while the US, Russia, and most European governments have reserved judgment as to who might be behind Monday's explosion that damaged both Nord Stream pipelines. Former Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski had no such qualms. This is what he said. "Thank you, USA," he tweeted, for the destruction of those pipelines. Now, fast forward it to today, when as in one of our programs, Rashid said, as he was talking to Scott Ritter, he broke Hearst. Matter of fact, let's and then you'll see that America had planned, there was any conversation, no military conflict, Russia and Ukraine. They already planned it. So let's go further.
The investigative journalist who goes by
U.S. investigative journalist.
Let's see if it'll do it on the.
U.S. investigative journalist Seymour Hersh, he's revealed Biden's possible involvement in the attacks on Russia's Nord Stream gas pipelines. Reportedly, the attacks were planned for 9 months since 2021. Let's learn more about the story right now with RT's Marina Kozareva joining us here live in the studio. Just quickly, Marina, it's worth reminding our guests that Seymour Hersh is a legendary journalist. He's known for pushing back on the mainstream narratives. Just quickly, one example is he in general, he has huge contempt for the American media. But when it comes to the official U.S. government narrative on the death of Osama bin Laden, Seymour Hersh called it one big lie. He's always pushing back on what are the mainstream narratives. Now we have this intriguing and disturbing revelation coming from Seymour Hersh about the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. What do you know?
Yes, absolutely. And it seems he has a lot of trust, which is why we are seeing that he says that it's a source that he's quoting with direct knowledge of the operational planning. And he goes into this very, very detailed explanation of how it was done, for how the U.S. blew up the pipelines. And how it happened is, according to Seymour Hersh, is that they used the U.S.'s Navy's Diving and Salvage Center. And the reason why they did that is because this way they didn't have to be held accountable to, because they weren't America's Special Forces Command, they weren't accountable to the Senate, and they didn't have to report to Congress. So they could do it hushed up. And they had a lot of secret meetings that went back and forth, according to Seymour Hersh. And he is quoting a source with direct knowledge of the operation that went on there. He's not revealing any names or who the source is. But the amount of detail that is in this clearly shows that this person knows what he's talking about. So how did they do this? This is something, actually, Rory, that we were reporting about, and we were called that this is disinformation. So when we were saying that in June, the U.S. was boasting, back in June before this all happened, the U.S. was boasting itself on a website saying how it had underwater divers performing exercises, testing their new drones. This is actually when they were planting the mines that then they went on to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines. So this was an operation called Baltops, and because it was from the area that this happened. So the way it was is that there was a lot of back and forth how to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines. And apparently top U.S. officials were discussing this. They were saying, how do we do this? Because they wanted to make sure that Russian dominance, when it comes to Germany and its energy sector, that was taken away. So that is the reason why they wanted Nord Stream blown up. They wanted it destroyed. They saw it as a way that Vladimir Putin's coffers were getting more and more money because Gazprom was making money. They were saying that because it's a state company, then the profits went on to Vladimir Putin. They wanted to make sure that Russia was getting no profit from any energy sales. They wanted to make sure that Germany doesn't feel that it can stand up to Russia if it wanted to because it's getting gas. So they wanted to eliminate all of that. But how do they do it? They can't just go out there and blow up the pipelines.
How did they do it, Marie?
They used this U.S.'s Navy's Diving and Salvage Center because it's the Navy. It's not part of the armed forces, so they don't have to report to Congress. So they can do it all hushed up. So according to them, last June, these Navy divers operating under the cover of a widely publicized midsummer NATO exercise, which is what we were reporting about when the Nord Stream terrorist attack, I should say, happened. We were saying that, hold on a second, we found this article where they're openly discussing how they had underwater divers in that same area where the explosions happened. And apparently now we know, according to Seymour Hersh and his source that revealed detailed explanation of how this was prepared and planned, this is exactly what they used, that so-called NATO exercise. That was used to plant. And the reason why they used that salvage center and not their undercover agents was because they didn't have to talk to Congress about it. They didn't have to get their approval.
I get that. So, I mean, just basically, let's remind our viewers, I mean, this guy, Seymour Hersh, he's a former New York Times writer. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He said that when it comes to the death of Osama bin Laden, he said the U.S. government narrative was BS. He said it was one big lie. Now he's come out with what is breaking news here on RT, saying that American divers, under the cover of NATO exercises last summer, planted explosives on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, which were then blown up by Norwegians. Now, Marina, we know that Russia was blocked from any investigation into the sabotage of the pipelines. Of course, the Western press at first said Russia has bombed its own pipelines. Another dose of BS from the empire of lies, right?
Yeah, well, at first it was Russia blow up its own pipelines. Actually, not at first. At first, which is something I wanted to get into later, but let's talk about this now. At first, we had officials, some European officials saying, thank you, USA. Remember that?
That's right.
And that was a top Polish MEP that was saying that. We'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah. Let's have a listen to actual Seymour Hersh, a little excerpt from the article where he exposes all of this. Let's have a listen.
the Norwegians had a solution to the crucial question of when the operation should take place. Every June for the past 21 years, the American Sixth Fleet, whose flagship is based in Gaeta, Italy, south of Rome, has sponsored a major NATO exercise in the Baltic Sea involving scores of Allied ships throughout the region. The current exercise, held in June, would be known as Baltic Operations 22. The Norwegians proposed this would be the ideal cover to plant the mines.
So the planning of this started in December of 2021 when they all met up and started discussing, okay, how do we fight Vladimir Putin? And they decided that they were going to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines once again to make sure that there's no reliance on Russia, so that Germany could feel like it can stand up to it and doesn't feel pressured, right? So not to go in and, for example, be an ally of the United States. So this way, if they took out Nord Stream, that reliance on gas goes away because there are no pipelines. And also, Vladimir Putin is not making money. So this is exactly what they were trying to do, weaken Russia, right? So, and then recently we've heard, not only after the Nord Stream attack happened, did we have European officials saying, thank you, USA. We also had Victoria Nuland, for example, right? She was discussing this, and let's have a listen, actually, to what Victoria Nuland had to say.
I am, and I think the administration is very gratified to know that Nord Stream 2 is now, as you like to say, a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea.
And actually, it's interesting here because we also heard, let's not forget, Joe Biden himself said, well, if Russia does anything in Ukraine, we will just make sure that Nord Stream doesn't exist. And everyone was saying at the time, well, how would you do that? This is actually it's not on Russian territory. And he said, well, we will find a way to do that. And apparently, according to Seymour Hersh, after they came out and said that, they went behind the scenes and said, hold on a second, guys, what are you doing? This is supposed to be, we're keeping this hush-hush. We're planning this. And then we had Victoria Nuland saying this. And then
Blinken as well. Secretary of State Blinken, wasn't he saying this is a tremendous opportunity? He said that in the wake of the terrorist attacks on the pipe.
Exactly. And all these people, apparently, according to Seymour Hersh, they were planning this all along for months before, 9 months. There were a lot of back and forth, secret meetings. Even with Norway, they were discussing this with Norway. How can we get it done? Oh, let's use the NATO exercise we have in June. And we were talking about this on this channel after the Nord Stream terrorist attack, and they were saying that this is disinformation, that we're just using an innocent NATO exercise that they were doing, testing drones, when apparently this is what they were using.
It's always innocent, Marina. Otherwise, it's always about humanitarian needs and democracy. I mean, it's so difficult to get through the CAC, but eventually you do tend to get there. Seymour Hersh, legendary journalist, blowing the lid off who was really behind the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipe.
Yes, and I'll work on more details, and next hour I will bring you word for word exactly how they did it.
I'm looking forward to it, Marina. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
We go further in of it, got the layout. But what do you think about this? You and I had already talked about. What do you think about it? And isn't that if they did and a violation international and a violation of European law and a violation of German law for them to do that? And isn't it a terrorist attack and a declaration of war for a nation to do that to another nation? I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Your mic. Okay, there you go. Just hold on.
Now, what about now? Okay.
Yeah, answer me in a second. But I want to let the people know that they're playing games with the mics also. StreamYard is playing games with the mic. They keep muting and unmuting. And as I lost myself in the dock down here, they disconnected me 2 or 3 times while the video was playing. But Rashid, go ahead with your thoughts.
Well, hasn't the empire done that? As I keep saying, the international law is for other people, not for me. I can do as I want to do. And I wanted to get rid of it, so I got rid of it. I mean, you bring this thing down to the simple terms. That's what he did. He, international law. Well, international law is not for me. It's for everybody else. Everybody else better do what the international law says. But with me, I break it every day. There's no such thing as international law for America because she breaks it every day. That's all that is. And blowing up a pipeline or blowing up somebody's house or sending a bomb 10,000 miles. What I do. Remember, I am he, and there's none other. Right? I can do what I want to do.
And as you and I talk, and we talk a lot behind the scenes, but as you and I talk, I already know the answer to this, but I have to pose it to you out here in front of everybody to get your perspective. I already know your perspective behind closed doors, but I have to be fair as a co-host of the show. What do you think is on those people's minds who continue to do this? Do they realize that they are alienating not only their enemies but their allies, and they're putting themselves in a more precarious and tenuous situation because the debt is ballooning? You're marching to war after war after war. At home, there is a crisis of infrastructure. There's a crisis of medical care. There's a crisis of homeless. There's a crisis, a cultural crisis. There are finance, everything. Why do you think these lunatics like Assistant Secretary of State Nuland, her clique, and the other neoliberals and neocons have policy by the throat, used to let it go just for some vendetta against Russia?
As Scott Britton said earlier today, they hate Russia. They consider them as orcs, right? They're not people. They're subhuman, right? Now, if they consider the people of Russia who look like them as subhuman, then what about the people who don't look like it? Right? So that tells you what they think of everybody else. And as far as what they're doing, they ain't concerned about the American citizen. Most of these people don't even go to the supermarket to make their own, to buy their own groceries. They got somebody else to do. Eggs is $15. It hurt me. Is eggs $25 a gallon? I wouldn't know because I ain't going to the supermarket. Gas is $10 a gallon. I ain't driving. Somebody driving me. They live in little ivory towers, and they consider everybody else is what did the guy in Germany say? Head of the EU, that this is the paradise. This is the
garden,
paradise.
The garden.
And everybody else is the jungle.
Yeah.
So the garden. Yeah. Everybody else is the jungle, right? We got nice little flowers here, all manufactured all around and stuff. As soon as you walk out of this closing structure, then there's a jungle out there. So they ain't concerned about that. They ain't concerned about the American people are just, what do they call them? Sheeple. Somebody to be ordered about, do what we want to do. That's all it is.
Yeah, they're being led to the slaughter with food. And another thing, let's go back to something. And we're going to pause the show in just a second to put up our different platforms. But let's go back to something. You and I constantly talk about this. And we've even brought the question up to some of our previous guests that we had on the show. The people in power think that they're so wise that they want to hold everything to themselves, and they want everybody to be fooled and to be ignorant and to, and to have a whitewashed education. Why don't you think that they realize that education, proper education, is the basis for any progressive and successful civilization? And if you water down education, or you deprive your future teachers, engineers, architects, lawyers, doctors, politicians of the proper guidance and the proper education, you are setting yourself up for a collapse or fall of the republic. Even while you benefit now, the ramifications later will be, I mean, just explosive. Why do you think that they don't grasp those simple tenets of life?
I'm living for today. I'm living for myself today. I ain't concerned about what's happening tomorrow. What does the old guy say? Well, I'll be dead in a few days. I ain't concerned about what you gonna do in a couple of years. He's to the point where he's about to go off a cliff, and he don't care about it. And then this is my people, and then the rich are the people that rule over the society. They consider themselves the privileged. Anybody else that's not a part of that, shame on you. I'm not allowing you to be into my circle. That's what that is. He's not concerned about anybody else. He's only concerned about himself right now, living. And if I want to kill somebody or blow or get rid of somebody, I'm going to do it. Because remember, I am the king and my orders go.
So isn't that the mind of a sociopath or someone who's psychotic and deranged?
That's exactly what it is. Somebody that's brain is stopping to function properly. If you tear down a society, I think that started with Nixon and Ronnie Reagan. You know, them cats out there, the hippies, the beatniks and all that protesting me. Well, hell, you know, how did you learn how to protest against me? Well, I wanted that to college. Well, then that's cut the college off. What do you say? Last they had with the LBJ and Nixon and all them had all them people protesting against the Vietnam War. So this time we ain't gonna put it on television. We're gonna continue the war up, and if anybody say anything about it, we're gonna put them in jail. So they dumb down the society. They don't want no educated society. They want a stupid society. They want cheap. And that's what they got.
And again, that goes back to you know, you and I, we know, but I got to give you this banter back and forth. But that goes back to, do they realize that they are destroyed? They are almost like Samson pulling down the civilization without being able to see what they're doing. They're so inebriated, they're so angered and enraged with this vision that they have of everybody else that they can't sit down and think straight, and they're helping to pull the building blocks which uphold the house that they're in. You know, and it's becoming more and more apparent. Yeah. So I want to pause us for 1 second, and I think this is it. I want to pause for a second and see if this is it. Hold on 1 second, everyone. Excuse me. So we allowed that to stay up just a little bit. And as you can see, as we came back, my camera was messed up again. This is what we have to go through to get this out to you all. Now, we've said all that. Now let us go into something, because now you're getting ready to hear a few other things that may not be as palatable for people who support Joe Biden. And you know, a lot of times when the truth hurts a little bit, people don't like it. You know, people want all comfort. They don't want any discomfort, even as people used to tell me that pain is weakness leaving the body. So sometimes you need to hurt. So what we want to do is give enough pain to make people hurt enough to want to learn more. So check this out right here. And this is talking about Poroshenko, Joe Biden, their connection and connection to Ukraine, which is being persecuted, and also the arms factories that are making it from this war. So
the investigative journalist who goes by Clandestine has shaken up social media once again, this time reminding people about the leaked phone call that took place between then Vice President Joe Biden with then President of Ukraine, Poroshenko, back in 2016. The American VP was on the phone with Poroshenko, discussing aspects of Ukraine's financial system. Biden had some very specific demands regarding certain banks.
What I don't want to have happen, I don't want Trump to get into a position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a policy where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the details. So anything you can do to push the Privat Bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, I would respectfully suggest is critically important to your economic as well as physical security.
Now, that last sentence apparently sounds a bit like a threat. Is this the way you would expect the sovereign leaders of two independent countries to speak with one another? Why is it that Joe Biden would speak this way to a foreign head of state? And what is Biden getting at when he says sophisticated enough to know the details? So many questions and so few answers. Anyway, Poroshenko replied that he was simply waiting for the auditor's report from Ernst & Young to come out. And once that happened, he would assemble the head of the National Bank of Ukraine, government officials, and the Minister of Finance. They would all get together and make the ultimate decision.
The only reason I have, after 22nd, when I have an audit report, we have a voting of the budget in the parliament, where Kolomoisky has a significant number of members of parliament. And the prime minister asked me to vote budget first, and then launching the process.
And then Biden promises he's going to keep everything a secret. And on December 18th, 2016, everything went ahead just as planned. Privat Bank was nationalized, just as Biden had stipulated. Now, the main stockholder mentioned by Poroshenko, Ukrainian oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, he was outraged and said it had been done without proper procedure and was purely a government grab. But who actually cares? Especially when the International Monetary Fund, which provided Ukraine with $17.5 billion in aid in 2015, backed the decision to nationalize Privat Bank. Now, some critics look at this and say the whole thing looks like a giant fraud, with the IMF and the Ukrainian government that's supposedly sovereign playing along with Biden. And who can forget how Joe Biden bragged about getting a prosecutor fired in Ukraine, a prosecutor who was investigating his son's company, Burisma Holdings. Western media would have us believe that Ukraine is a totally independent country and that Russia is rolling in to take it over. However, leaks like this suggest that Ukraine has been firmly in the pockets of certain people. Not people in Kiev, but on Wall Street and in London. And, of course, in Washington, D.C. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
And that they have him on record threatening the so-called head of state of Ukraine to close down his bank that Joe Biden and his son is connected to, so that the records can't be obtained by the prosecutor. And if they didn't do it, he said, in so many words, he said, you better do it because it's best for your economic and your physical well-being. What kind of politics is that? Go ahead, Rashid. I know you have something to say about it. Take the floor.
Isn't that what they accuse Trump of doing?
Yeah.
Threatening to telling me. You see, when we keep telling you, they're the same people, the same size of the same coin, two different sides. They impeached Trump for doing exactly what he did,
and they got it on tape.
Yeah,
man. So, in the head of state with economic military. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you.
I said, so what is your take? What is your take on the United States threatening a so-called sovereign and independent nation and its head of state when they constantly are in the media saying that Ukraine has the sovereign right to choose?
Well, evidently they're not sovereign and they're not independent, right? They better do what they told, or else they gonna get. He'll get what he said for your physical health. You know that. You know what that means.
Yeah.
He might send a Hellfire missile over there to you and blow your whole block up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's laughable for the Western press to continue along this line that it's Russian aggression. Go ahead.
The Western press is the mouthpiece of the empire.
Call them press
like I said, used to be. They said that the Soviet Union was state-run media. They state-run media is all of their media outlets. That's all that is. You know, it like you said, it's laughable. Indeed.
For those of you,
for somebody that can't.
For those of you who are listening, I mean, and looking at the show, you see that my camera continues to get knocked off by still understand that constant basis. Now, the man stopped there. The United States continues to double, triple, and quadruple down on failed policies. Now, Russia has already warned the United States that if the United States supplies long-range weapons that are able to strike deep into Russian territory, then Russia would strike back with all force necessary. And it's not to be confined just to Ukraine. And yet we hear them continually saying that we're going to arm them with this and we're going to arm them with that. What do you say about that before I play this clip?
I say if remember, Putin got pressure on him. See, that's what people don't understand. He's just not a one-man dictator. He got other people who's a lot more hawkish standing behind him saying, what are you doing? Like we said before, if it wasn't, the people want him to bring the hammer down. And he's up there and all that. That's the
yes.
If anything happened to Putin, they're gonna get somebody a whole lot worse who, as soon as America hit, they're going to hit. That's what that is.
Let us play this clip here to show you the madness of the empire. And in a perspective, they're already losing in Ukraine. Russia is destroying the mercenaries and the Ukrainian army. They're destroying the weapons depots and the weapons, the armament that is being supplied. They've already destroyed most of the Air Force, all of the Navy. And yet the United States, on one hand, is telling you that they can't produce enough weapons, and yet they're putting the weapons that they have into the pot to be destroyed again. So in essence, Russia is not only disarming the Ukrainian army, but it is in essence disarming the Western world with this war here. But listen, I want you to see the madness in America pushing the largest nuclear power to the brink.
In other news from the conflict, Ukraine has hit an industrial facility in Russia's Belgorod region overnight. That's according to the region's governor. Fuel tanks were reportedly on fire after the strike. The blaze is said to be contained as firefighters quickly tackled the flames. There were no reports of casualties and staff were safely evacuated. This latest attack comes as Washington has pledged to send ground-launched small-diameter bomb long-range rockets to Ukraine, which would enable Kiev to strike much further than current weapons. Moscow has criticized the weapons delivery, saying that U.S. is pushing Ukraine to attack Russia.
Washington sees no boundaries in seeking to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. The transfer of increasingly powerful weapons to the Kyiv regime is a deliberate escalation of the conflict by the United States. The administration has put almost everything on the Ukrainian cards: its own national authority, the money of American taxpayers, and the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. At this rate, the United States could go to absolute madness, like giving fighter jets. Washington is de facto inciting its protégés to attack Russian regions.
The ground-launched small-diameter bomb has a range of 150 kilometers, twice the distance of Ukraine's current HIMARS rocket launchers, also supplied by the U.S. The long-range missiles are said to be highly accurate and can be fired from hidden positions to avoid detection. Washington says they will enable Ukraine to attack Russian territories, including Crimea.
The small-diameter bomb in the latest Ukraine aid package has the potential to target Crimea. Is that the intent behind providing it now?
So thanks for the question, Joe. So yes, as part of the USAI package, we will be providing ground-launched small-diameter bombs to Ukraine. This gives them a longer-range capability, long-range fires capability, that will enable them, again, to conduct operations in defense of their country and to take back their sovereign territory in Russian-occupied areas.
We discussed the topic with the coordinator of the International Action Center, Sarah Flounders, who says the U.S. is intent on dragging out the conflict for as long as possible using any means.
The U.S. isn't ignoring the warnings. They are deliberately provoking further and further war. They know the consequences of this, and they're more than willing to push ahead. There's an enormous number of weapons in the U.S. Inventory. It's lots of choices, but it's clear that each choice is meant to expand the war, to do more damage, not in any way to reach a resolution. It will also mean on Russia's part that they will have to go further into Ukraine in order to secure their borders, Russia's borders. So it's an expansion of the war. It's very dangerous. There's no reason for it. It's more money, but a higher grade of weapons that actually have double the range.
So with that said, let me go to a short clip. This is a short clip, which is going to bring us up to these articles right here that were published last year and this year, especially on the situation of America arming Ukraine for the intent purpose to strike Russian territory. Okay? So first, let us go to this.
I fear the world is not sleepwalking into a wider war. I fear it's doing so with its eyes wide open. But the world needs peace, and peace in line with the United Nations Charter and international law. We must work harder for peace everywhere. If every country fulfilled its obligations under the Charter, the right to peace would be guaranteed. When countries break those pledges, they create a world of insecurity for everyone. So it's time to transform our approach to peace by recommitting to the Charter, putting human rights and dignity first, with prevention at the heart. We are at the highest risk in decades of a nuclear war that could start by accident or design. And we need to end the threat posed by 13,000 nuclear weapons held in arsenals around the world.
So that was the UN Secretary General, as he talked about the world is not sleepwalking into war, but they're going headlong with their eyes wide open. And you can tell, even though he's a Western-leaning secretary, but you could tell that he was talking about the situation at hand. But Rashid, before I read this article that is talking about World War and what could spark World War, what do you have to say about the situation, especially after Guterres had that to say?
Well, he got to do what he's told. He's a puppet like all the rest of them. They put him in office. The UN was set up for London and Washington to rule the world, and then they come up with this charter. I ain't gonna live by that charter. Everybody else got to live by it, except me. All of the UN resolutions that was passed against Palestine, to help Palestine, America never lives up to any of that stuff. If they don't like it, we just ignore it. Yeah. But if somebody else don't like it, and we attack it. The UN charter says so and so, right? Well, law is the justice supposed to be blind, but not in his court. In his court, that he only have the right to do whatever he want to do, and other people ain't got no rights at all.
None at all.
So as I said before, the rest of the world need to throw that UN and flush it down the commode and start over again. And then this time, have it where the empire don't have free reign to do whatever she want to do.
Right. So he talked about World War III. We heard clips about what America's planning on doing. Now let's see. This article came from June 28th, 2022. It's Medvedev or the Russian war former president has warned you can unleash a world by attacking. If I'm a full-fledged NATO member, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has warned. For us, Crimea is part of Russia, and that will be so forever. Any attempt to infringe upon Crimea is a declaration of war against our nation. Now, do you remember when the general said that they would arm, when I just showed you that the general said that they would arm Ukraine specifically to take back the Donbass and Crimea. And we heard what Medvedev said about the situation. So we're not going to read it. We're going to go to this next article, which is more recent, which is 5 days ago. And this article was published in February this month. And it says, Ukraine will burn if it strikes Crimea, ex-Russian president warns. Moscow could retaliate in any way possible should Kyiv decide to attack Crimea, Dmitry Medvedev has said. Washington's decision to supply Ukraine with longer-range missiles and allow Kiev to use them at will can only lead to further escalation. Do you remember earlier when the Polish official said that blowing up of that pipeline marked the next step in the escalation between NATO? Remember that is this. He says, Washington decision to supply long-range missiles and allow Kiev to use them at will can only lead to further escalation. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said on Saturday. He added that the U.S. appears to not want the Ukraine conflict to end. Let's go a little further. Let's slide down a little bit. He says, in an interview with Russian journalist Nadana Fredrickson, Medvedev denied that Ukraine strikes against the Crimea Peninsula would force Moscow to sit down at the negotiating table. The result, he said, would be exactly the contrary. There would be no talks in such a case. There would only be retaliatory strikes. Now, do you remember when Vladimir Putin said that open interference in doing that and making direct strikes on what they deem as national Russian territory would prompt a massive lightning strike. Where do you think that the empire is taking this? Because Russia is telegraphed, and I believe that. See, this is you and I. We know that the only way to face a bully up is to smack him in the mouth. Because if you continue to walk away from the bully or turn the other cheek, the bully will not only take your shirt, he'll take your pants, your underwear, your socks, your shoes, and your wallet off. And if you still have your necklace, your ring, and your watch on, he'll come back to take that. And then you turn the other, don't analyze you. So the only way to stop to being a victim of the bully is to make the bully the victim and let them know that if you come here, I believe that Russia is slowly but surely coming to that realization. What have you to say on this matter?
Wasn't Medvedev supposed to have been a dove? Now he's more hawkish than Putin.
Yeah.
But I think Paul Craig Roberts wrote an article that he was kind of upset why Putin is not cracking down on it. Scott Ritter, Paul Craig Roberts, what's his name, Douglas McGregor, they're actually patriots. They see that the country is going wrong, and they're trying to steer it back into the center, because the people that's running it is just off the cliff. You know, they can't see anything but war. And these other ones see that, you know, you what you're doing is leading all of us down to total destruction. That's what's taking place. And it's just like it is. They keep pushing Russia. They keep poking that bear. They keep poking that bear, and pretty soon that bear gonna turn on them. Russia have to do this. What did they say? What did the empire say? What did what's the name? Hillary Clinton said they got too much land over there with all the research
and too much resources. It's just not
too
fair.
Much. It's not fair. We need to get some. We need to take some of it, and that's the way they think. They can take anything they want, do anything they want, and nobody ever gonna hold them into account for it. It's like what we was talking about by Syria. Hezbollah and Iran told them you have to strike back.
Yep.
If you let somebody keep striking you, he just gonna get more bolder and more bolder and more bolder. So he attacks Syria every day and twice on Sunday. But he ain't attacking Hezbollah. When he attacked Hezbollah, where they said that the people, his soldiers, within a 20-mile radius of the border, go and hide in the bunker because they know it's the hammer's coming down, and that's what's happening with that's the reason what Paul Craig Roberts is saying about Russia. If he don't stop this, he's gonna destroy all of us. You got to stand up to these people. These people are on a war footing, and the only way you can stop it is you have to stand up to them. That's what's going on.
Yeah. So in closing, what have you to say to everybody before we close out?
Stay tuned. Keep your eyes open and watch what's taking place, because these are world-changing events. Like I had a friend of ours that we know. He was saying that I don't want to know he live on Timberlane Street. I only want to know what's happening on Timberlane Street. and you got to slowly bring him to the realization that these are world-changing events that's going to strike you in Timberlane Street.
Yeah.
If they go to war with China, and all of the Walmarts closed down, don't you think that would affect you? If China stopped sending all of them cheap goods that everybody get, all your iPhones, your television, no televisions are made in America. None. They're all made on wash machines, dryers, irons, you name it, everything is made somewhere else. So if these things take place, then it's going to affect you.
Right.
And only a fool will sit there in a burning house and somebody tell him to get up and leave, and he sit up there, ain't nothing gonna happen to me.
It's
that's
just
what's
smoke.
taking place. It's just smoke until a little ember of fire jumped down and hit him on his skin, and he's jumping up and running around. It's a fire. Then it's a big deal then. And this is what you got to understand.
Yeah.
These are events that's going to change your world. I'll tell you what, if they have a nuclear war, it's going to change your world. It's going to change your world. And like you said, if they start fighting China, do you think China is going to still send all those goods over here?
Right.
We at war. Keep them ships going.
Keep giving us the.
No, they gonna cut him off.
The rare earth. Keep sending us the rare earths, even though you control 92% of the market. And another thing, before we go off there, here's something that most people don't realize. Even though India accounts for a large portion of medicine that comes to the Western world, India's ingredients for the medicine comes from China. So if China gets in a war with America, China is going to cut off that road. China is not going to allow for that to be sent over here. So now you're getting beat in economics, no trade, no food, no jobs. You have default after default, bankruptcy after bankruptcy. You have insurrection at home. And then the king get vital. All of that, these what they call earths and precious minerals. How are you going to go?
Like what Russia should do,
so go ahead.
instead of selling their oil. See, Russia really don't have to sell no oil for talking about they got to get some money. Their money is rubles. They don't need to buy something from somebody else. They got all of the resources and stuff that they need in their country. They don't have to go and do anything else.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Instead of selling oil to India, well, you can sell it to China and sell it back. If I was Putin them, I would say, I'll sell you this oil, but you can't sell it to nobody else.
Uh-huh.
If Europe want to go to headlong war with me, then I'm not going to feed them their economy to go to war with me. That don't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you
I'm
going to sanction you.
I'm looking at the article. As you were talking, I just put in China supplies India with ingredients for medicine, and comes up. Even though India accounts for a large part of the Western Western-made supply of drugs, this article says this heavily deplete active pharmaceutical ingredients. So now you're going to be hit on every end if the United States and these lunatics that are running in the United States continue to try to tempt China and try to provoke China and try to go to war with their number one creditor, trader, lender, investor, and supplier of goods. The insanity of America is on display for the entire world to see. Rashid, in closing, what do you have to say?
They want to go to war with everybody. Who do they not want to attack? They'll even attack their own, like I said, their own friends. They attack it. blow up the pipeline so Germany can't get no more natural gas and all of the economy going sinking to the toilet. Who is it that he don't want to attack? He want to attack Iran, right?
Yep.
Iran said, if you attack me, I'm going to close down the Strait of Hormuz. No gas. But yet still he's doing it. He's keep on doing it. It just don't, it shows you that the leadership of the empire is insane. Stay tuned.
Well, on that note, I love my colleague, friend, and brother here. We are Rashid, and this is about the same way we came in, and God in our heart and on our mind for you all. Yes, until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above things, stay righteous. And like we often say, remember that time is the most valuable commodity that anyone can give, because once that is gone and used up, you can never get it back again. So make sure that when you give your time, you get the value of it back. And we hope that we gave you the value of your time back with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We go out with love and peace. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life.